Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Living on Music. I'm Steve Hauk, and one of the many wonderful parts of doing Living on Music, but one of the really the most rewarding almost and enriching for me is being able to talk to people who have done music when I was younger, when I was growing up. I've loved music my whole life. I've interviewed people that I've loved through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond, but also in the 60s and early 70s when music was beginning for me. My parents were very, very much into music, had numerous albums, Neil Diamond, Barbra Streisand, Peter, Paul and Mary, Broadway shows, Beatles, everything. And this gentleman who I have on today, along with his cohort, Dan, were England Dan, and I've got John Ford Coley on Living on Music for you today. It is a wonderful talk with John about what it was like to kind of at a relatively young age to be really hit the superstar level of charts and music and sales and things like that with his pal Dan, and that's what was amazing. It's Dan Seals, whose brother Jim. Yeah, you know the band Seals and Crofts? There you go. And so the music is such a big deal here. And for John, it's going to be a wonderful talk about not only his stuff with Dan, with England Dan and John Ford Coley, but also what he's done since then, other kinds of music and things that he's done and what he's been doing now, especially over the last 3 years as a musician. And we're still talking about it, what it's like to have dealt with the pandemic as a musician, whether you're 24 or 74. Everybody seems to have been able to find a way through. Anyway, without further ado, please give a warm Living on Music welcome to John Ford Coley. John Ford Coley, I'm telling you, what an honor to have you on Living on Music, man. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you. It is, as I said in the open, John, and as I mentioned to you prior to us starting the show, I've done hundreds of guests from around the world, from all over the place, and to be able to have people like you on, who got into my head as a young person growing up in Connecticut. It was all that music that we were hearing as we grew up, and I am so happy to have you on. Just so I want you to know that this is a real honor. What has been going on for the last 2 or 3 years for John Ford Coley with music?
Well, when I would write a song, instead of it being a normal 3-minute song, I found myself writing all these epics. So 9 minutes long, it's like I don't dare play them on stage because somebody's going to go, what is this, like worship music or something here? You say the same thing over and over and over. No, but I mean, it gave me a lot of time to spend up in the studio, which was wonderful.
And John, Ambrosia, you've known them for a long time, right? Yeah. How did you guys? I mean, I know you guys probably got together back when things were soaring, and now look at 2022. That's wonderful that you're going out and playing with them. Is that feel really neat? Because it was last year, I believe, and recently.
Yeah, I love those guys. I've played with them. I met them in the Philippines in 2000.
Wow.
We were there. Jimmy Jameson was the other person that played. He was out of Survivor. And we just got to be good friends. We started traveling together. I've been with those guys since that time. They're probably the premier band for me.
Wow.
And then there's Orleans. If I've got to go out and play, I hope that I end up playing with those guys because they're both terrific bands. I don't even have to get a line check, and I haven't seen them for a year or 6 months. I know that when I walk up on that stage, it's going to be like we played last night. They're that good.
Oh, I bet. And, the musical kind of spectrum of you right now, at this point in life, how does it feel to be where you are right now and also have the legacy of what you guys did back when, which we'll talk about in a minute?
Well, I don't think any of us ever thought that it would last this long.
Right.
the resurgence coming back around, that was so good for us. You know, a lot of the casinos coming up and they started putting people in. It kept us going. And I've done other things, you know, it's like when at
Yes.
a point you have to do something else to kind of survive. Most
Yeah.
people think that, you know, we were all mega millionaires and living off our stock options. And I tell people the only stock options I ever had was when I worked at the rodeo and I got the option of loading in either the bucking horses or the bulls. That
Oh
was my,
my God.
you know. So yeah, but I did a number of things.
Right.
You just keep moving forward. But I always played. You just weren't in the public eye. That was the deal about it. You're always out playing. I came back to Nashville. There's a tremendous number of opportunities to play here. Songwriters in the round. You know, you're not playing to 2,500, 3,000, 5,000 people now. You're playing to maybe 50, but it doesn't matter because you're still playing.
Right. Absolutely. And what you must feel too is when people hear the stuff that you originated 40, 50 years ago, that it still runs true in these people. That has to feel wonderful too, as part of where, you know, where you again are feeling now.
Oh, it really does because you can't judge or measure how people's lives were affected. I had some guy the other day, I was on some thread, and he came up and he said, you know, we had children to you guys. And I started laughing. I said, well, did one of them get my name at least? And he said, as a matter of fact, they did.
Oh my God.
Oh, no, don't tell me stuff like that.
Oh, how sweet is that? I mean,
That's nice.
you know, and again, you know, when we're talking about the songs that you guys, you know, obviously have on that slate back in the day, really love to see you is something that is in the core with, you know, other things from that era. And I just love the fact that remains in here. And it's neat that many years later it still does to me as a fan of yours. You were born in Dallas, right?
Yeah,
As John Edward Colley
right.
and Colley. So your early influences though, John, are really neat, and that's why I put Ryman back here. That's why I put, you know, the old Grand Ole Opry stage, which obviously is now at the new Opry facility in Nashville. But where would the influences come from to John when you were growing up at that age?
Mostly people are surprised because I although I got Whispering Bill Anderson on the Grand Ole Opry and Buck Owens and people like that, pretty much I was trained classically. So
Yeah,
Bach, Beethoven, and Chopin, Mozart, those are the big influences on me still. When I come up to the studio, I'm not playing, you know, some of the rock stuff. I'm playing Bach and Beethoven
nice.
and keep music behind me. So it keeps me motivated. It keeps me going because again, the chord structures are entirely different. So I was raised with a lot of show tunes, opera, church music, Stephen Foster. You know, it wasn't just one style of music. It was very eclectic in the approach that I was raised with. So I'm very
Right.
grateful for that.
Oh, I bet you are, John. And what turned the corner in your probably what in your early teens to go into this a little bit more of a music rock and rollish type of world instead of staying with classical music?
Well, first of all, it was exciting and bands were really coming up.
Yeah.
And so they had a guitar player. There was a band called the Playboys Five.
Right.
It was Ken and three other guys or four of the guys. Well, one of them quit. The guitar player quit. So they decided we all want a piano player. Dan wanted another guitar player. My name came up. I'm just a little ROTC boy, you know, an ROTC and running around the school and stuff.
Right.
So they will come over and you know, just audition. I went, well, okay, it sounds fun, you know. So I went over, played, didn't know anything about rock and roll playing that way.
Right.
And ended up getting the gig. Dan and I did not get along at all because he didn't want me in the band. He wanted another guitar player. And so then we would ride to various gigs together and we'd start singing. And both of us were Everly Brother fanatics
Oh,
and Righteous Brothers and things like that. So we're singing all these songs. Dan always took the lead. I always took the harmony.
right.
Kind of developed a sound and a friendship off of those
You
songs.
sure did. And you I love the fact that you had Southwest FOB was
Right.
this band that actually you had a one hit, The Smell of Incense, which did well, and playing on the bill with Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
What was that experience? You remember anything memorable
I
about that?
really meet them. We played in Houston and in Dallas with them. I just remember, they were off on the other side. They didn't pay any attention to us, didn't even really get to meet them. But the funny thing about The Smell of Incense is that that was our first record in the FOB. That's the one that kind of got things going for us as a local band. Well, Jimmy Greenspoon from Three Dog Night toured with Dog. I love those guys. I just saw Danny Hutton recently, one of the singers, playing down in Greenville, Texas. Jimmy and I are talking one night because he'd come to Nashville and we just hang out. And so we were talking about one another's history. And I told him about, being in the FOB, and we had a song called Smell of Incense. And he went, whoa, from the West Coast Pop Art Experimental Band, that Smell of Incense. And I went, you've heard of that group? And he went, John, I was a keyboard player in that group. And I went, what? And we had actually met one another because they played. That's where we heard the song, down at a place called Luann's in Dallas. Things just kind of continue to come full circle all the time.
She stood as still as the shadows of stone. She stood on the edge of my mind. I tried to push her away. I shut and locked the door. Her eyes grew large and asking, and the smell of incense fills her room.
Oh, that's spectacular. That was certainly a one of the big steps for you is that band. And then, you and Dan decided to do, as you just said, you started to play your own acoustic act, which was what, Coley and Wayland, right before the name was changed. What prompted, and this is something that a lot of people, and you've told this to many times, I'm sure, but some people who don't know exactly, how did England Dan and also John Ford Coley and Ford Coley become the names for you two?
Well, Coley Wayland really wasn't cutting it.
Okay.
And so you want something that's going to catch people's attention.
Right.
And it just wasn't doing it. So Jimmy Seals, Dan's older brother from Seals and Crofts.
Unbelievable, right?
He says, I got a name for you guys. And because Dan used to run around mimicking the English accent all the time. So it's like, it was terrible. If you've ever heard a Texan attempt to mimic any accent other than maybe South Carolina, it's funny.
Right.
So he came up and he said, how about England Dan and John Ford Coley? And we both kind of went, cool.
Wow.
Right. He says, we drop the L from your name, make it Coley. Because all my life I've been called Cooley, Conley, Coley, Cowley, everything but Coley. And so it kind of got to be irritating. And so we dropped that one L like Red Foley.
Right.
Then John Ford, there was a funny story with that. Several years ago, there was this church that I had gone to, and one of the preachers there was black and the other one was white. The white guy came up to me while I'm talking with the other pastor, and he said, man, I love your name. He said, how did you get that name? And I looked at the other preacher and I went, you're not going to like it. And he said, no, how did you get your name? And I said, well, John Ford, although he was a director, mine comes from John Rip Ford, the Confederate general that won the last battle in the War for Southern Independence down in Texas. He went, God. Oh, and the other guy, he had already blasted the Southern Confederacy
Right.
before. And don't do that. It's over. All my family were Confederate soldiers, so stop. Two of them were killed.
Oh,
I don't care. And so that's pretty much how that came about. But I think he also participated in the burial of a lot of the men from the Alamo.
oh, wow.
Got the ashes and stuff like that, and they placed them in San Fernando Church down in San Antonio.
Wow.
So, a little history on that.
Oh, big time. That's fascinating, man. And I love the way that, it kind of meshes the beginning of what became an incredible run. And again, being a music guy myself over the last 50, 60 years, and looking at what music has done and what kind of music comes out, you guys hit it huge. Did you expect over those next few years to become what you did?
No, not at all. But my saying on that is there's so many people that try this. There are people that can play me under the table. I couldn't match them on my best day. And it was just kind of like God reached down and kissed us on the head and said, here we go. But I'll tell you a story that's inspired me the entire time through, because again, I wasn't taking it very seriously. I'm playing in the band back in Texas, and at a certain point, I'm going to school. There's no piano up there, I'm not practicing. And we went into our Thursday night rehearsal for our gigs for the weekend.
Right.
And they were going to let me go. They were going to also let the bass player go because we just weren't progressing in the way that we needed to go. So they said, you've got a week to straighten this out. And I liked playing in the band. It was fun. It was a great weekend thing. And I loved the playing and the entertainment of it and meeting people.
Right.
And so it really made me mad. I'm driving back to school the next morning. And this is going to sound strange. Again, I don't care. I've heard voices 3 times in my life. This was the first time, and it scared me to death. I'm driving to North Texas, and whatever was there said, I gave you the gift. What you do with the gift is up to you. But
Wow.
if you do not use the gift, I will take it from you and I will give it to someone who will.
Oh.
And that was it. Scared me to death. And I
Wow.
became extraordinarily serious about playing. So as I go out on the road, I take my guitar with me, carry it with me, because I'll play in the airport. I'll play anywhere. They asked me to come to the Philippines one time and said, don't bring your guitar. We'll get you a guitar when you get here. And I said, yeah, what do I do in the airport? What do I do in the hotel room? I play all the time, guys. I don't just pick this thing up when I get on stage. I play all the time.
Right.
But really love to do it. So being able to do that, and you wonder again, how did we get this? There are people that, when I came back to Tennessee, to Nashville, I heard these guys play. My first thought was, I don't know, man, maybe I can get a job with the state of Tennessee. I don't know. It's like, I ain't going to play. That's for darn sure.
Sure.
And, but it's something that you just do. I love it. Again, it's not something that I wait to get on stage and play. I play constantly. And I never cover anything up. There's some acoustics that I've got covered up simply to keep the humidity, in the case and stuff. But there was one friend of mine once. He called me up and we were doing a gig together. And he said, John, he said, I pulled my guitar out of the case and I put new strings on it. And, I'm ready to go. I've been practicing your stuff. And I went, you pulled your guitar out of the case? And he said, yeah, guitar out of the case, put new strings on. He says, I'm ready to go. I got your stuff. And I said, pulled your guitar out of the case? And he said, yeah, I pulled my guitar out of the case. What's the deal? I said, what was he doing in the case? When I come home, the first thing that comes out before I even unpack is my guitar, and it goes on the stand, because when I walk past it, I'm going to grab it and strum a few chords or do something. I'm not put it back, but it's always out and it's always accessible.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that. You're glued to it, which is the way you seem to be. About 10 years of you guys together, and you decided to go your separate ways. What was the reason for deciding to move on?
Honestly, we were kind of affected by the same curse that affects so many other bands. Too many people get involved that
Wow.
shouldn't be there. They're making decisions. They're kind of go, well, you're the singer, you're the hit guy. You can get rid of him. You're better on, and they would do stuff like that. And we both kind of fell into it. And that's why even when I go to uh, colleges and I'll speak sometimes to
Right.
special bands, I go, okay, here's the way it works, guys. Now trust me on this because we've been through it on several different levels. Rule number one, keep your wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, and husbands out of your business. Rule number two, keep your stupid wives and girlfriends and your stupid boyfriends and husbands out of your business. Rule number three, keep your well-meaning but ignorant, stupid husbands, girlfriends, because they end up getting in there and doing so. I was just talking with a friend of mine last night, played with a guy for 7 years as a drummer. She's a great drummer. And she said, well, I'm not working with him anymore. And I said, what? And she said, yeah, his new wife didn't like me. And I went, are you kidding me? And it was like, guys, so a lot of people, I mean, it happens to more people than you would imagine. They get in and you let them in because Dan, the one thing about Dan and I that I really so appreciated is the fact that we never fought. We never physically fought. We would have exchanges on things, but Dan and I were both very reasonable because we're both solution oriented. I don't want to dwell on the problem. Let's just fix this thing. Okay.
Sure.
We would compromise. We would come to different understandings, and it was a wonderful relationship up to a point.
Right.
Then also about that time, disco was just sweeping everything, and we were having difficulty getting on the radio because, again, "Love Is the Answer" was the only song that I'm aware of that was in the top 10 in 1979 that was not disco. So you recognize this is the way it is. And again, we had traveled with all these groups, Bread and Three Dog in Chicago and Carole King, and it's just you watch people go like this, and some people have a slow decline. Others go boom, but everyone has a decline.
Right.
You have to know that it's very ephemeral. And you're here today and you're gone tomorrow, because I used to call the music industry the fastest gun in the West syndrome. You're always looking over your shoulder. There's always somebody there wanting to take your place.
Right.
I mean, I'm not excluding myself. I would see these guys and going, okay, we can do, yeah. And then things happen and there you go.
There you go. Exactly. The songs that came out of your repertoire with him, again, live forever, man. Your legacy is never going to go away with what this music is. And I know these songs well, and I've been playing them since I knew we were going to interview, and I playing them again over and over, and just feeling them. Where did the base of those songs come from between the two of you?
Between the two of us, one of the things that Dan and I learned, because again, we had done 3 albums on A&M, and it was all up, the exception of one. And I discovered that I think I'd made like $1.98 all that entire time on songs that I had written or Dan and I had written. And so we didn't want to do I'd Really Love to See You Tonight simply because someone else had written it. We wanted to be songwriters doing our own things. And then I saw the first check that came in from us doing I'd Really Love to See You Tonight. And Parker McGee wrote
Parker McGee, right from Mississippi, yeah.
And I found myself calling Parker up and going, Parker, hey, buddy, what else you got? It's just, you just become mercenary. It's like, wait a minute, you mean I can get paid and I can continue to play?
Right. Well, and John, I love that story with Doug Morris hearing the song through the wall of the Big Tree studio. I mean, you guys had it going from the first time you played it in a room, and then boom.
Yeah.
Next, as Boston Fellas, whose first single of 1976 went gold just a few months ago. And even as I stand here running my jaws, their second one is making its way steadily up to the top of the charts. Great way to start a new year for England Dan and John Ford Coley.
Hello, yeah, it's been a while. Not much. How about you? I'm not sure why I called. I guess I really just wanted to talk to you. And I was thinking maybe later on we could get together for a while. It's been such a long time and I really do miss your smile. I'm not talking about moving in, and I don't want to change your life, but there's a warm wind blowing the stars around, and I'd really love to see you tonight. We could go walking through Windy Park, take a drive along the beach, or stay at home and watch TV. You see, it really doesn't matter much to me. I'm not talking about moving in, and I don't want to change your life, but there's a warm wind blowing the stars around, and I'd really love to see you tonight. I won't ask for promises, so you don't have to lie. We both played that game before. Say I love you and say goodbye. I'm not talking about moving in, and I don't want to change your life, but there's a warm wind blowing the stars around, and I'd really love to see you tonight. I'm not talking about moving in, and I don't want to change your life, but there's a warm wind blowing the stars around, and I'd really love to see you tonight. I'm not talking about moving in.
That was so ironic because, again, I'm not one that believes in coincidences at all.
Right.
It happens. Things happen. There's a reason for it to happen. You just kind of don't even try to figure it out. You know, I was talking, I hate to mention names, but Garth Brooks, when he first started out, I was there and I would talk to him and see him and stuff. And he said, I don't get it. I don't get the attraction, what people are seeing. And I said, you don't need to. Just go with it. It's not a coincidence. Figure it out in 10 years.
Oh my God.
Okay? Just go with it. And yeah.
Boom.
And then it took off.
Yeah, absolutely did. And, you know, what were, John, you know, a memory or two, the road that you guys took up until, you know, you decided to move on to, you know, in separate ways. What were a couple of the moments in that 10-year span that really got to you wonderfully, that made it so happy? There must have been multiple times and multiple things you were doing.
There were, well, first of all, the learning curve was absolutely amazing.
Wow.
And I'm playing with all of these phenomenal musicians. It's like, okay, I'll tell you a quick story. We were recording the first album on A&M.
Right.
And we had a German engineer, Henry Louis. Henry was big into meditation. So we would all take breaks. He'd go do his meditation, and then we'd come back in and everybody would record. So he and I'd come into the studio early. He's getting things prepared. So it's just him and I in the studio.
Right.
And he just arbitrarily surprises me. And he said, John, who do you really like now musically? And I said, Henry, you probably haven't heard of some of the people that I really like. I said, I don't like mainstream stuff by and large. I like unique stuff. And I said, there's this one girl that knocks me out. I said, her name's Joni Mitchell. Have you heard of her? And he looked at me like a cow at a new gate. And he said, are you serious? And I said, yeah, have you heard of her? And he goes, John, I'm her producer.
Oh God.
In Studio C on Saturday. Come over. So I go over to see Joni Mitchell in Studio C.
Oh.
I miss James Taylor by about 10 minutes, maybe. He had just finished, she's working on the Blue album, and he had just finished playing on A Case of You. And so I sat in the studio, met her, watched her record Last Time I Saw Richard and All I Really Want.
Oh.
You run into that kind of an environment, you find you're running with people, you know, like Brett. I'd heard of Brett. Elton John takes us to England with him for a month. We played 1 or 2 dates with him. He
Oh.
called play another one in San Diego. The next thing we know, we get a call. He says, I'm going to England for a month. Come move me over there. So it's like things would just systematically pop like that had no reason to pop. And like I said, it's just like God reached down and kissed us on the head and said, go for it.
Yeah, he kissed you on the head and also gave you guys just an absolutely beautiful sound and feel. And that's what I felt again at 62. And I heard this, I used to listen to this when I was probably 12. And
Yeah.
so 50 years later, I still love what you did. You guys went your separate ways. He went country, right? Pretty heavy country. What
He did very well in country. Dan should have been in country all along because that was more his forte, and that was where he really fit. So when he went over into country, he just excelled.
Yeah.
You know, it's good.
Yeah, he did. You jumped right in with Leslie and Kelly off the
I
top.
did. And then I into film as an actor.
That's what I wanted to ask John too. My mother was an actress. I love acting. I love film, everything like that. What spurred on John to do acting? That is wonderful.
Actually, it was a complete coincidence, a mistake. A man had become good friends with over the years was Alex Rocco. And Alex played Mo Green in The Godfather. He played the Bugsy Siegel kind of role. He got shot in the eye on the massage table in Godfather 1.
Yes.
And so his son was doing a film. So he's trying to call in as many favors as he can. And he calls in Joey Pantoliano, who went on to Sopranos and doing that. And Steve Railsback, who played Charles Manson in Helter Skelter, calls me in. They pull in Timothy B. Schmidt as the bass player in the band. I'm the drummer in the band. And so, I mean, the number of people that I ran into, and I found out that I was a natural at it. As a matter of fact, they used to come up to me and say, John, look, it's not in the script, but we want you to ad-lib something here. Because I'm ad-libbing all the time. And so they even got me one time. They put me, we were playing a club. I forget which one it was. We had already played the one that River Phoenix died at and Johnny Depp owned. That was the Viper Room. So then we played this other place and they said, John, what you're going to do is you're going to be at the bar. Because my name in the band, in the film was Kenny Bond. So they said, go over and do your worst British accent. And the waitress is going to come up. And you say, the name's Bond. Kenny Bond, you know. Well, I meet the girl, big girl. And like at the gym, kind of working out a lot kind of girl. And I said, hi, my name's John. And she looked at me and she said, hi, my name's Hope.
Oh,
you bastards. And I turned and I looked at the director and Steve and those, and they were just cracking up. They hooked me up with some guy, you know, and it was, I mean, just stuff would go on all the time. And I'm laughing most of the time because it was so different than anything that I'd ever been involved with music.
Oh, I bet.
So I ended up about 6 things, you know, America's Most Wanted and that. And the film, actually, we were just talking the other week. Someone had seen it and she said, that's a real cult-like following sort of a film. And I went, yeah, I know. It didn't catch on. But it was a good film. It was well done.
Oh, that's great. You also wrote songs for film and television.
Film.
But for others, right?
In other films.
Yeah.
Steve Railsback, the guy who was playing in the Scenes from the Gold Mine, he and I did a couple of things together. He was another Texas boy. He played Charles Manson in Helter Skelter.
Right.
TV
Oof.
thing. And Steve was intense. And
Yeah.
we just hit it off. And so actually how we hit it off was that he was very standoffish. He just wouldn't really talk to anybody. So when we met the first time, we just, acknowledged the past that each one of us had. And that's kind of it. Well,
Right.
we played a scene to where we went over it probably 3-4 times. And I'm supposed to go, way to go, Harry. And that was it. And so we're in the middle of rehearsal. And I said, way to go, Harry. And I grabbed him by the cheek and I tweaked his cheek like that and then slapped him on the arm and walked off. And I saw the glaze come off of his eyes that split second. Well, the next morning, because he had just kind of gotten there. The next morning, the producer comes over and he goes, John, what the hell did you do to Steve Railsback? And I said, anything to Steve Railsback. Why? And he said, he informed me this morning that if he's got to share a trailer with anyone, you're the only one he's going to share the trailer with. Man. So we just got to be good friends. And I put a bunch of songs in his film. I called him one time because he did a thing called The Spy Within, Teresa Russell, Scott Glenn, things like that.
Yeah.
I called him up just to go play pool or something. I said, Steve, you want to go play a game of pool? And I live 50 miles away. And he said, man, I'd love to, but I got this film that I'm working on, and I got to get this stuff doing. And I went, need any music? And he went, yeah, I do, as a matter of fact. He says, you got anything? And I went, yeah, what do you want to hear? And so I get off the phone. I'm going to meet him in an hour. And I get off the phone and I looked at my wife and I said, I got absolutely nothing to show him. What am I going to show him? So I grabbed a bunch of stuff. I ran over to his house, played me. I like that song. You give me that song, right? So I ended up writing a couple of other ones for him. And Steve was a trip. I so enjoyed that, man.
Oh, that's great. What a fun run that was for you and that. And in the 90s, you returned to touring and playing with people, not only Ambrosia and people like Three Dog Night, but I love some of the other people like Al Stewart. I just interviewed about 3 months ago, and I'm supposed to go see him this week at the Birchmere here. And what a wonderful artist. Give me a couple of brief memories of some of what you did with some of those people and what you really enjoyed.
Well, I mean, first of all, he's a Russian history freak, number one. He's great. And he can tell you everything you would ever want to know about wine.
Right. Yes. We talked a little bit about that.
I mean, we were up playing one of the yacht rock things. Who was it? Orleans and Christopher Cross. And Al was on that particular show. And so we're sitting in the bar later on. And he's drinking with some guy, I think it was Peter Beckett maybe. And he said, well, what's in this thing? And Al says, well, it's got this and it's got this and it's got a little bit of Pinot Noir. And he says, how do you know that? And he goes, well, I just taste it. And so they asked the bartender, and the bartender said, yeah, it does. He said, you know your stuff. And it was like, I mean, $100 bottle of wine, $3 bottle of wine, tastes the same to me. I couldn't tell you,
Right.
I'm a drinker, but I mean, it's funny talking to him.
Yeah, he's really got a thing going with that. And what an amazing run he had. And that's been
one of playing Ambrosia in 2 weeks.
Oh, fabulous. Well, any other memories of some of the people? Again, the Pocos, the Christopher Crosses, Stephen Bishop, Edgar Winter, some wonderful experiences, I bet.
I just keep running across people all the time. Like I really connected up with Richie Furay again.
Oh, nice.
And because we used to open for those guys years ago. I played with him. He was playing here in Dallas. And I called him up and I said, you got an opening, in Nashville. I said, you got an opening act for that winery date? And he goes, no, we don't. And I said, yeah, you do now. I'm coming to play for you. And so we ended up. I played with him in New Jersey at another thing. And I learn stuff from people all the time, and I run to go see them. It's like a couple of months ago, Billy Bob Thornton was playing down in Texas.
Right.
The theater, I've got the owner is a really good friend of mine. I play down there quite a bit. He's doing an acoustic thing. Now, Billy Bob's a punk rock guy, and he's playing all of his punk rock stuff acoustically. And I went, you know what? I hadn't thought about that. There's a lot of up-tempo things that Dan and I did that I want to play, but you need a band. So I've started playing some of those things acoustic, and it's worked out terrific. So having seen him and talked with him and stuff, and it was really neat to talk with him because he has the number one scene of any film that I've ever watched. And that's the fact of the Alamo, when he played David Crockett.
Right.
And his line was, he's talking to Jim Bowie, and he says, if it was just old Davy, I might climb over that wall, drop over the wall, take my chances. He said, but that Crockett fella, everybody's watching him. And I went, oh my God, that is the most heart-wrenching and gripping scene I think I've ever. And I said, I've always wanted to talk to you about that because you have no idea about this. But in the end of the film, they showed the San Jacinto battle after the Alamo.
Right.
So great-great-great-grandfather was in a group called the Mina Volunteers out of Bastrop, Texas, that were on their way to the Alamo. They made it to Gonzales, 70 miles away, the day before the Alamo fell. Had he made it to the Alamo, they'd have been killed in the field, and I wouldn't be here. But he went on to fight in that battle at San Jacinto, shown one of those men representing my great-great-great-grandfather. He was shot in the leg. He died 26 years later because they never got the bullet out, and he died of lead poisoning. And I said, I just want you to know that. And he was like,
oh.
So you get to meet people, in different scenarios, and I love it.
Oh, that's fabulous, John. Again, that's part of your world in that kind of generation of your music, and keeping going. In the 90s, you had a couple interesting things to talk about real quick. Was you made a Tin Pan South trip, right. and then Nashville became more a part of the community at that point?
Well, yeah. Because again, Nashville, you got people that are some of the best writers, some of the best musicians I think I've ever seen, because again, they study it. It's a craft to them. And you'll rewrite a song 3 and 4 times because you're not just writing fluff. They are very serious about writing it. So they have inner rhymes and they take their time about it. It's got to make sense. It's not just throwing words up on the chalkboard.
Sure.
It's sense. So I learned so much from those guys. My guitar playing improved dramatically because I had the presence of mind when someone would play something that I didn't know, go, whoa, stop right there. What did you just play? Show me what you just played.
Wow.
They would gladly show you what they just played because again, they're always in teaching mode as well. And they're much more humble about the stuff that they do. Right. And I thought, I've written hit songs, but I went back to Nashville and I got my lunch handed to me. And I was really thankful and appreciative of that. I've been so lucky, in my entire career, because even growing up, I started out as a paper boy. My dad said, no, you can't get the job. And I said, okay. And I went out and I got the job. Never thought I'd get anything better than that. Then I went on to do this. Never thought I'd be anything better than that. Played in a band. Never thought it'd get any better than, and it just kept going. So there's an appreciation to know this could have gone to somebody else. Why it came to me beats the heck out of me.
Oh, I love that, John, and you're not alone. Nashville is such a piece of gold for so many people to go down and songwrite. So many guests of mine on Living on Music, from established artists to up and comers, have used Nashville as that. So I love to hear somebody like John Ford Coley using Nashville as well. You had a very interesting thing, sir, in 1997, where a handyman in Long Island was arrested for impersonating you. Now, what was that?
You know, they called me, and I had a horse ranch at the time.
Right.
So they called me from Nashville, my administrators, I guess you could say, and they said, John, have you been in Nashville? Have you been in New York recently? And I said, no. And they said, have you been there in the last 6 months? And I said, no. And they said, have you? And I said, wait a minute, you know, what part of no, how many times do I have to say this before you get what I'm saying? I said, I haven't been there. And they said, well, then you've got a problem. There's a guy in New York who's running around saying that he's you. He's playing gigs. He's getting on television and everything else saying that he's you. Honest to goodness, I was so far removed from all of it. I said, well, tell you what, he wants to be me so badly. Tell him to come out here and watch the kids. I got about 60 bales of hay to unload so he can hit. And they said, no, seriously. And well, come to find out, he was. Oh. And eventually I had him arrested because what really got me was the fact that they said, and he's borrowing money from all of these people. And I went, that son of a gun, he's going to get somebody pregnant and they're going to come after me. And that's when. So stopped him cold, had him arrested. American, what was it? I forget the name of it. One of the TV shows, they had me go up there. I was going to confront him. Oh. He was playing in another club. And yeah, we had him arrested. He ended up spending a year in jail for that impersonation. Also, again, he was borrowing money from everybody, but I saw he made tapes and he'd go, okay, this is my song called Lady. And he turned around and looked at the band and he wondered, when did I write this thing, guys? And I'm going, he had nothing to do with it. No. You know, and so, but that was like the third time, it was second or third. That was the fourth time. And I talked to Dan and I said, so man, this is like 3 times that this has happened to me. And he goes, no, it's 4. Remember the guy when we were in Texas and he was saying that he was you in the Southwest FOB? And I went, damn, I forgot about that.
Oh my God.
So it's like, I'm being impersonated all the time. And I mean, I got some guy in Miami. We'd played down there. And the next couple of days, there was an article in the paper about some party. And John Ford Coley was there and he was dancing with all the girls and he was doing all this stuff. And they said, do you know about that? And I said, no, I wish I could have gone. Sounds like I had a great time, you know. Oh. But you kind of have to make fun of it at a certain point.
I guess you do. Yeah, that is, boy, that's a unique thing. My God, look at people trying to be John Ford Coley.
Well, that was, I never figure that out. I mean, you know, I'm not very well recognized. I mean, you know the name,
right?
But facially and stuff, nah. You
know. That's wild. The 2000s, John. You know, again, 2009 released Live from the Philippines. And it was also, I believe 2009 was the year that Dan passed away.
Right.
Had you guys been in touch? Did you stay close at all over the years, or what happened when he went? It must have still hurt you no matter what.
No. The thing is, I was really proud of Dan. I never tried to get involved in his career. I never sent him any songs or anything like that because again, like, no, this is your deal. This is where you shine. You know, and I'm not so insecure or selfish as to go, well, remember me sort of a thing. As a matter of fact, I was standing in line at the airport one time and this couple behind me, they just started talking to me. It's the South, you know, you just talk to people arbitrarily in line. And I said, well, what do you do? And they said, well, we're accountants. And I said, oh, okay. They said, and we have, you know, several country acts. She said, have you ever heard of Dan Seals? And I went, As a matter of fact, yes, I have. And she said, well, he's a big country artist. I said, yeah, I know. Anything for a long time. And then we were about to get on the plane, and I said, you know how I know Dan Seals? And they said, no, how? And I said, because I'm John Ford Coley.
Oh,
And it was like, whoa. It's like, I don't run around talking about that kind of thing.
right.
It's me and hundreds of other people have done this.
Oh my God. But what a chance out of the blue for somebody to say that to you. And then what a thrill for them to be able to hear that you were standing right there. I love that. And going through the 2000s, though, you had Eclectic in 2016. What's the musical sense through the last number of years for John Ford Coley? And again, now, where is it with maybe new music, or are you going to continue to do what is on your plate, and what did the 2000s bring to you?
I just continue to go forward. That's the only thing. I write all the time. The Eclectic record, but again, because I was trained in so many different styles of music.
Yes.
I don't like sticking to one thing. When I play on stage, I'm going to play piano, I'm going to play guitar. You might get classical, you might get, one of the hits that Dan and I had. You might get rock and roll, you might get a folk song. I just like to play. And so I don't pick a particular style. As a matter of fact, Dan and I used to go into the record companies when we first started out. You could go in, you could play, and we would literally leave that room with almost every one of them saying, what are you guys? Are you country, you pop, you rock, you folk, you classical, you jazz? What are you? We'd go, yeah, pretty much. We play all things. It's just natural. So I don't sit there and go chunk, 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 and then the next song is chunk, 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 and the next song is chunk, chunk. It's like it bores me to tears.
Sure.
And so I like to branch out. Well, this Eclectic album was just a collection of all the songs that I had wanted to record, or at least some of the songs that I'd wanted to record, because it's like 26 songs.
Wow.
The first side is all produced band. The second side is mostly acoustic, a lot of ballads, big things like that. Had great people play on it. Vince Gill and I wrote a song together. Guitar on it. I didn't want him to sing because he's so recognizable in that, but he's such a phenomenal guitar player. He's not utilized as a guitar player. Mm-hmm. So he came in and played guitar on that. Had people like T. Graham Brown and Lydia Salnikova and Georgia Middleman and Jamie O'Neill, and they would come in, Colin Ray, and just sing on things. And again, it starts off with a thing called Beach Boys song, and then the last song is I Should Have Never Left Texas. They're so diametrically opposed to one another, and that's what I like to do. Songs that go across the board. I want people, when they walk in or walk out, they've laughed a lot, number one, because I tell a lot of stories. I'm a Texas boy, and I laugh and I joke and I tell stories, and they're mostly funny. There's nothing serious about them, really. It's just things that have happened on the road. As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell one up in Annapolis when I go up there this next couple of weeks.
Yeah, end of August, right?
In that square, and I tell it out everywhere, and people just guffaw and laugh because it's really funny.
Right.
So I'll wait to tell it there. But
I can't wait till you're playing there. You just said something, John, that's interesting, that you love to kind of diverse the music that you're doing and what your feelings are. But you and Dan played music that was different in songs, but had a kind of a similar feel. Did you want to mix it up more during that time, or did you feel good about the feel you had?
No, it's very interesting because, again, I was getting bored. I wanted to branch out. So if you listen to Dr. Heckle and Mr. Jive, there's an eclectic feeling to that. You've got fusion jazz on Caught Up in the Middle. Are you into with rock and roll, heavy sax things on Running After You? Then you've got of course, Love Is the Answer, which is across the board everything.
Yes.
What's Forever For, which is a big ballad. And I tell everyone, they wanted to turn us into a big ballad group. And I remember saying to Doug Morris, I love Air Supply. I love Air Supply. I love the songs they do. I don't want to be Air Supply. I want to enjoy them being Air Supply. You're trying to turn us into Air Supply. I don't want that. So I would end up writing different songs, classical oriented things. And I tell everyone they tried to release Broken Hearted Me, that Anne made a big hit on. They tried to release What's Forever For, that Michael Martin Murphey took and made a big hit on. They wanted to release those on us. And I just tell everybody, if I ever tell you this is a hit song and that's not a hit song, don't believe me.
Right.
Don't believe me. I've passed up songs. Dan and I both almost passed up I'd Really Love to See You Tonight because we thought it was more of a feminine song.
Oh, wild.
It was like, and we didn't want to do it because we didn't write it.
Right. Well, you also did Todd Rundgren's Love Is the Answer, which is such a beautiful song.
Well, when they brought that to us, I said, seriously? I mean,
really?
I was such a fan of Todd Rundgren that to have the opportunity to do that song, what a gem that was.
I can't stay here anymore, and I looked high and low. I've been from shore to shore to shore. If there's a shortcut, I'd have found it, but there is no easy way around it. Light up the world, shine on me. Love is the answer. Shine on us all, set us free.
But you did it so beautifully too. It's not like, I don't know, to be able to grab a song like that as well and do it. And I was listening to a lot of the stuff, and I noticed that also on Dowdy Ferry Road, that song, you just starts going up, and it sounds like there's just a lot going on that's a little bit different from some of the earlier songs that you guys had been hits at.
But that was us.
Yes.
That was like I did a sequel to Dowdy Ferry Road called Cottonmouth Grove on the Eclectic album.
Oh.
And Dan wrote Dowdy Ferry Road. I wrote Cottonmouth Grove. And it's fun to be able to pull all of those different things together because, again, you don't find many groups that do that. Dan and I were known for a lot of these really ballad kinds of things, kind of soft, but we played all kinds of music, and we used to play in a rock and roll band. And so this is a song that I really enjoy playing. This is on the CD, it's all with the band, but I really enjoy playing it by myself as well. So this is called Cottonmouth Grove. Sat down by muddy water near the path where her lover would go. Watched moss swaying the live oak. Swore he'd come, he did not show. She ran to find him in her haste. Stepped right down on the big black snake and she was gone. Gone. Somebody recently told me, said, I think you've got ADHD. I don't know. I mean, I don't care if it's working. I don't care. I'm not on any meds, so I'm good, Yeah. But I started thinking about that. And when you play classical music, it changes constantly. You go through this one movement, then it's another movement. It's entirely different than the one that you're dealing with right now. I love that change. And so I expect that. If I play Dowdy Ferry Road, after, right then, I'm darn sure not going to play a Cottonmouth Grove right after it because, okay, I've already done that. Now let's do something different. Maybe I'll come back to it in a little bit, but let's play something that's a little bit, different. And I like the challenge of it.
Oh,
It keeps me motivated.
yeah, I bet, man. That speaks of volumes to what you did together with him and also what you've done on your own. 2020, you released a live record, Long Way Home. And
Yeah.
that was live in Israel and LA. What was the crux of that live record?
Actually, the guy I went to Israel to play, and he said, we'd like to do a live album. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. And so they did it. And then we ended up playing with the same guy in Los Angeles. And it was great because I was playing on Elton John's piano, which was wonderful in the studio. And you imagine the admiration and love that I have for Elton John. So to be able to play, on his piano, that was a thrill. And we kind of did another live thing. So we'd take songs from each one and we would play them, and put them A and B side, like this is from Los Angeles, this is from Israel. And it was fun because I got to actually do something in 4 languages at that time. We sang Hatikva in Hebrew. And then I spoke in Tagalog in Los Angeles from the Philippines. I did a song in French. And it's just kind of fun now. You don't have to sit there and try to impress anybody and jump up and down on the stage and be cool. You just kind of get to play, which is it's satisfying.
Oh, I'm sure it is, John. And things are still cranking along. You're playing here at a place I know very well. On my parents' anniversary, which would have been I think their 53rd anniversary, August 29th, the Rams Head on stage in Annapolis. Great place. And then Friday, September 1, you're banging back out to the Grattan Resort and Casino in California. So look at you going, and east to west.
I just got in from Denver day before yesterday on Friday. I go to Midland, Texas, Wednesday, then turn around and go to Annapolis. And it was really funny because the last time that I played in Annapolis at the Rams Head, I played with Terry Sylvester from the Hollies.
Oh, fun.
And have you ever met Terry?
I have not met Terry, no.
You ever met Terry Sylvester?
No.
He is quite a he was in the Hollies.
Yes.
So I love to joke with him all the time. And I tell people, I'll call him up and I go, hey, Terry, how you doing? He goes, oh, John, I'm good. How are you? Well, they shot me in the chest and they cut my leg off, but I'm fine. How are you? He's hilarious. So I just love to try to mimic his accent and stuff.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, look, I mean, John Ford Coley, thank you for this Living on Music run. And again, I mean it. The music you guys created back in the day is in our souls. It really is. So you should feel really good about that. I hope you do.
I do.
Yeah,
it's touching to me to know that it affected or touched the lives of so many different people.
It does. And when I got the note, the word that you and I could talk, I've been playing that music. And I do that with a lot of the musicians that I've listened to as a youngster, because music is so important to me. I'm a 17-year cover band singer and just had 3 gigs this week. So I'm singing out there and having a blast, and can't tell you how much that your music means to me and how it always is. I'm wishing you the very best for going forward. And thanks again for being on Living on Music, man.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me here.
Oh, my pleasure. Keep in touch and good luck at Rams Head on stage, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks so much.
Sure, man.
Appreciate
Wow. Again, as I said in the open, what an amazing experience to be able to talk to a guy whose music you heard when you were young, and that's when music was starting to grow in you. And I just remember those guys and that run that England Dan and John Ford Coley had. And it was wonderful to be able to talk to him. John, thanks so much for being on Living on Music, and let's keep in close touch. If you want to be part of the Living on Music Nation, go to Facebook right here and join us. It's a wonderful way to get kind of pieces of the music world here and there all over the place. And and things that we post, things that are posted by the Living on Music Nation, and other things. It's a wonderful thing also about all the Living on Music episodes and things. And YouTube, that's where you find the episodes, at least for the last 3 years. You can go to livingonmusic.com and read the articles from some of the biggest musicians in the world that I've interviewed on that. Those are the articles about interviews, but these are Living on Music on YouTube, and you can look at some of our episodes and subscribe if you would. That'd be wonderful to up the ante there. Always, that helps on YouTube. And if you're a podcaster, you can go to your favorite podcast app and find Living on Music with Steve Houck. But once again, thanks so much to everybody. Appreciate the contributions through giving to Living on Music. If you're able to do it, I'd love to welcome you in that way. And we're going to put people on at the end of shows soon and show who has donated. Everybody who has is on livingonmusic.com on the left side, where Al Stewart is, I believe, or somewhere you can find actually the logo, and you can go find it. But you can go to Venmo, and it's at Living on Music LLC. All one, Living on Music LLC. And any contributions just help us keep going, because it's all self-driven, the show, and it's been free up to now, and it's been incredible. And just see if we can turn a little bit of a corner. Anyway, thanks for joining Living on Music. John Ford Coley. A lot of great shows coming up, everybody. And remember, if you're going up, down, sideways, if you need a way to kind of even yourself out and feel good in your heart and soul, don't forget to be living on music.